All right. Well, happy Friday. We're in a mood. Welcome to the JudgeMental
Uh,
podcast.
I'm just tired.
You're
I'm
tired?
tired, yeah.
I'm in a mood. I think it's just enough is enough. We've gotten so much feedback on our Bridgeman case and our Oldham County case,
Yeah.
and it just
Oldham
becomes
County case or just the commentary?
commentary.
Alright.
We need to find an Oldham County case. I mean, it wouldn't be hard. We need to find a Bullitt County case.
I just saw one that I was involved in early on that just had a lot of the things we talk about in it. In fact, it's one of those where I've complimented Judge Goodwin in Oldham County for not falling into the crap from the custodial evaluator, but just funny enough, like a day or two after we talked about Oldham County and I mentioned some of those things where I was really referring to that and a couple other cases, I saw a motion get filed in that case and it's flaring up again. So it might be worth looking into. Might be interesting.
Oh, absolutely. And we were talking before we came on. It seems that every single case we look into, I mean, just randomly,
Yeah.
absolute shit show, nightmare, appointed expert after appointed expert, after appointed GAL, after appointed FOC, blah, 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 blah,
Yeah.
blah.
And not only that, I mean, it is true. Every case that involves kids that we look at, and not cases necessarily where people are telling us to look at
Yeah.
specifically, but just, looking at motion hour dockets and seeing certain motions are being filed. Hey, let's look and see what's going on in that case. Oh my God.
Mhm.
You have so many people that are appointed and billing the parties and are involved in people's lives. And it used to be those cases were sort of the outliers and everyone talked about them. And now it's every case we look at,
Yep.
every case with kids.
Yep.
Now, so much of the problems that we talk about are related. In fact, virtually all of them are related to kids' things. There are
Mhm.
plenty of things, due process violations, your problems that are not kid related. We just see the most egregious things being kid related, and the most recent Court of Appeals decisions, emergency orders, writs have all been kid related. So that's what we tend to talk about.
Yeah, and I do think that there's a different level of obviously what you're willing to fight for. Like it's just like a breach of contract case. Like you could lose in a divorce if you're married and don't have kids, but eventually you'll kind of quote unquote come to your senses and be like, it's not worth paying $300,000 to win 20.
Hmm?
But when it comes, and not everybody, some people don't. But again, at the same time, that's a cognitive decision that you have to make. If it's worth spending $300,000 to you to get 20, at least it's not affecting the mental health of children or the
No, that's
future
right.
of this country.
Yep.
But when it comes to your children, you will sell every last thing you own in order to advocate for them as what would be deemed a good parent in real life, not in family court, but in real life.
Yeah, I'm watching people who have lost everything through litigation over their kids,
Mhm.
houses, hundreds of thousands of dollars, businesses divided up, just, on the brink or,
Mhm.
severely in debt. And I'll check back in on those cases and see more people getting appointed and the parties being ordered to pay, X amount of dollars, or, someone bringing up a motion about private school and the court, like, actually listening to it, which blows my mind that we're still fighting over, like, whether or not the courts can choose schools for kids. But then who in the world's going to pay for it when they already can't? We're already having contempt hearings because the parties can't pay all 5 of the therapists and GALs and FOCs that have been appointed on the case.
Well, first, I think the best thing to do is just get rid of court-appointed therapists, period, end of story, or get rid of the immunity component, because then they would have ramifications if they didn't do their job. And let me be clear to everyone listening. We have our largest fan base is therapists that don't take court appointments because they know how bad y'all are fucking these kids up. I mean, I get chased down, and I'm not going to say by who if I'm wearing judgy stuff, but this is not, it's 2020. It's just they haven't realized it yet. Do you know what I mean? They're the villains. It's 2020 as far as law enforcement goes. No, I'm not kidding. These people in the community literally know their names. They know what they've done to their neighbors' kids.
Oh, yeah.
They know all of this stuff. I do not have any interactions, and I want to be clear, any interactions with people in the community that they don't have a horror story from family court.
Yep.
And I will, if someone comes on this podcast and says that they would allow some of these FOCs, regularly appointed FOCs and GALs, I will pay you $20,000 cash to let them investigate you and your husband and your children the way they investigate those families. $20,000 cash. You gonna match it? They
Ooh.
won't fucking do it.
Sure.
All right,
That
40K.
sounds like fun.
No, $40,000. And that means your husband's side chicks, you know what I mean? Your internet Google searches, your W-2s, your credit card statements, your children's coaches. That time you caused a scene during your child's cheerleading competition. That time you let your child cheer with a concussion. That time that you posted on social media that you had 4 martinis. All of that.
Yeah.
Every last part of that.
Including the stuff that happened 10 years before you had kids
Yes.
somehow.
Oh, of course,
Yeah, yeah, yeah.
obviously.
We got to look at everyone's past going all the way back to their birth. It's all relevant.
Every disgruntled client that ever fired you that wants to label you with a mental diagnosis without any medical education whatsoever.
And if you have an ex, we're going for the in-laws. That's going to be the good stuff. We want to know what the in-laws, especially if you've had a messy divorce.
Oh, yeah.
And then we're gonna put a lot of weight. We'll make sure they get a lot of weight.
Your landlord from college that you paid the rent
That's right.
late on. You know what I mean? Your
The roommate for college. The guy that you hid your weed in their laundry basket and they got busted for? Yeah, that one. That's going to be in there, front and center.
Now, $40,000 cash. Will any Louisville judge or lawyer take us up on that?
Oh, man. No. Judges only. I'm not matching lawyers.
You're not okay.
I think there are plenty of people that just to get at me will go through that, and I certainly would.
Oh, I think it'd be worth it. I mean, I really do. I think it'd be worth the money just to see the stress that would happen. And not that I want them to have stress. I don't believe in the stress. But if you think the system works, then why not do it? Do you know what I mean?
Well, who are you going to have do it? The people that they're appointing and make a living off of these judges?
Uh-huh.
They're not going to do it, and they're not going to dig. They're not going to bite the hand that feeds them. They're not going to.
Oh, I know. And that's another thing. I went down this rabbit hole. And y'all know, it's like I think the Bridgeman case was maybe the straw that broke the camel's back for me and some other recent things that have happened. But it was just this notion that it's the perfect storm, that it's truly all bullshit. It's just all bullshit. It's all make-believe. It's all made up. It's all just whatever you feel that day, and you're going to use a legal word or a medical terminology to justify it.
Or a poorly placed Latin word. Those are always my favorite. You can tell who took Latin and who didn't take Latin.
You just cannot make it up. And I will say again, I went down, and y'all don't even know all the stories that we're following, all the cases that we're following. I did, if you follow me on my Instagram, last night I did post, and I mean this sincerely. I mean this with every ounce of my being. Louisville doesn't give a shit about Black women until it is too late. And every single one of you Louisville lawyers or Louisville attorneys out there that just had your field day tweeting all of this, believe all women, marching, da-da-da-da-da-da. You will not get that grace when something bad happens out of Louisville family court. Don't you dare. Don't you dare, because y'all know it's happening.
I think that problem is much bigger than Louisville family court or just Louisville.
I agree. And I don't know. And I wasn't looking for that pattern. Honestly, if I were to bring my own beliefs from what I had, I had like a mid-level firm that did middle-class divorces, LOL. I would have said that I believe the problems in family court are probably disproportionately affecting men before we started doing this. And I still think that's probably true when it comes to middle or lower socioeconomic status. But in high asset divorces, there's no question in Louisville, from what I've seen, I think that women are being disproportionately affected. And regardless of all socioeconomic statuses, Black mothers that fight for their children are being labeled as crazy, and they're losing their kids.
Yeah, the trends that I see more related to women in the high asset cases are, I think you see a lot of the more traditional roles, and you see one side that either through their work or family worth or whatever has control of lots of finances. You have one person who is raising the kids and is at a huge disadvantage when that family breaks up. And you see the courts looking and say, oh, there's this giant pile of money, and they have these high expectations for someone who hasn't worked outside of the home while they're taking care of their kids. And you want to talk about a complete reversal of circumstances where you are taken care of and there's plenty of money in the household and you're not having to worry about those things. You just get to focus on your kids. And then all of a sudden you're expected to be fully employed and self-supporting and all of this stuff very quickly afterwards. I see that that's, in high asset cases, there are some very specific things that affect women mostly from what I see, just because of the roles in a lot of those relationships.
Is the pattern that it's a female judge doing this?
I don't know. I mean, it's hard for me. The last many years of my practice, we had almost all female judges.
Right.
We have two guys, all the rest are women. So yes, majority of female judges, but that doesn't necessarily mean anything. That's not a scientific way to look at it because the majority of the judges are female. So of course I'm going to see it more with, just by the numbers, I had a lot more cases with those circumstances being tried before females.
Okay, devil's advocate here. So when all the judges were white males, why was it okay to say white males are oppressive to women?
What do you mean?
What do you mean? What do I mean? If you're saying, well, it's not scientific to say women are
No,
disproportionately
no, no,
treating
no.
women negatively.
I'm saying, like, if you're asking my opinion, you asked me specifically if I was seeing that more in front of female judges, and I said that I can't really speak well about that because almost all the cases that I had in those circumstances were female judges. So I didn't have enough of those cases because, number one, we don't have many male judges that I practiced in front of, but also I just didn't have those circumstances enough in front of the few male judges that we had that I can draw any distinction between them. Almost all of the cases that I tried or litigated significantly were in front of female judges, so I don't feel like I have the data to say that I noticed any kind of a difference based on gender of the judge. It doesn't mean it's not there. It's just
Yeah.
I can't say with any confidence because I didn't have many of those cases that went to the litigation stage in front of male judges.
But we've spent the last, as a country, as a society, let's get like into hypotheticals now, talking about like fight the patriarchy. You know what I mean? Down with the patriarchy. Oh my gosh, white men have been oppressing women for years and years and years. And I'm not saying that's true or isn't true. Okay. I'm a white female. But what I am saying is that all of the bitches tweeting women should believe all women or believe all women aren't fucking believing women.
Yeah, it's true.
No.
No, listen, I have seen that. Like it is one of the things that I guess while I was down in it, working, in my practice, I was looking at each case very individually. And if a judge didn't like a person, I tried to figure out what it was that we were presenting or whatever. And it wasn't until I left the practice and came and started looking at and reviewing the cases that I had and looking at things in relation to other cases that I started noticing that. And that was one of the things that really stuck out to me, was that women, especially women who did not or had not worked outside the home, and the ones that were treated worse were actually ones that had a good education, hadn't worked outside the home, and because they had a good education, decades back are expected to be able to just instantly earn at a level that, it took the family 20 years to get to that point.
Yep.
And that trend was clear as day when I started looking at the cases that I took to litigation.
Women are being punished by other women for being stay-at-home moms.
Yeah, I felt that way. I certainly saw that in a lot of my cases, which was a pretty big reversal from when I first started practicing. When I first started practicing 20 plus years ago, there were lots of presumptions. And if you had someone here in Kentucky, most of those cases where someone didn't work outside the home, it was a female. I mean, you saw it the other way, but just the great majority of cases that I had was the woman who did not work outside the home. And they were just assumptions that you were making going into this, that they were going to be protected in this way and this way and this way. And it was just sort of understood. And that has largely gone away. And in fact, it's almost swung the other way, which is another thing that I didn't notice while I was down in it. But looking back at the evolution of like the treatment of people in my cases over 20 plus years, I can see that trend.
But we still have people tweeting like it's all the patriarchy. It's all the patriarchy. And we, like you said, it's largely female judges. I would say that the family court bar in Louisville is largely female, probably more percentage-wise more than male. Maybe not. I mean, not of the high asset cases.
I don't know. It's a pretty good mix.
You think so?
Yeah, I don't have a feeling either way. I think it's a pretty damn good mix. Now, there are a lot of young attorneys that I don't know now.
Yeah, samesies.
Yeah.
No, and I could be wrong too. I mean, I've been out of the game for a minute. Like, I don't recognize people's names when I look at the motion hour anymore. I'm like, who is this
Yeah.
person? And that's another thing. There's been mass exodus from family law, I think, in recent years, unlike what you saw at the beginning of your career.
Well, at the beginning of my career, if you chose to do family law, you've made up your mind to do what the area that no one else wants to do. I mean, it was just, and I chose it mainly. I was an international environmental attorney, and moved from DC to here. Had to start something
Hmm.
new, tried a bunch of different things. And I found two things. Number one, it's easy to get family law cases because I set up an office with a bunch of attorneys that do anything but family law. No one wants to touch them. They'll give you all the business. And number two, I figured out I liked litigating, and nothing nothing gets you in court more than family law. You're in court probably 20 times more than any other, anything else other than criminal.
Criminal, yeah.
Criminal, you're not necessarily trying cases. You're going in for more, you're doing more substantive hearings and doing substantive. Oh, I mean, I
I
think
hear
you're
you.
doing a lot more lengthy substantive things and deeper discovery and things like that in the family law practice than anything else. Now, criminal, you're right. But that was also why we hired at my previous firm. We love to hire public defenders who spent a lot of time in court because you can teach subject matter. People that are good in court, that's almost invaluable.
Yeah, you got to
It's
be able to
natural.
pivot.
Yeah.
And I was a public defender. And the reason in family law was super rewarding for me. And you have to understand, I was a public defender. I was broke. Literally, I used to have a roommate that was a public defender. I was in my 20s. And we used to Venmo each other back and forth to buy cigarettes. And this is back when cigarettes were affordable because it was like, that's how broke we were. Like some of us sometimes. And so when I went out into family law, first off, the fact that I didn't have to be in court, 95% of the work days was like shocking to me. Like I could do stuff, you know what I mean? I could travel. And then I was making a decent living and I loved the aspect. My parents were divorced. I love the aspect of being like, whoa, don't beat your head against the wall. Do what's best for your kids. Obviously not a saint by any means, made a good living, love to travel, love the independence of it. But then I do think there was a massive shift during COVID that really changed the game.
That's funny. I always had friends who did other areas of practice I could refer things to and lean on when I, had an issue in my family law cases that might touch on bankruptcy or employment law. And a lot of them prefer to do the criminal stuff. Now, I guess it's probably different when you're a public defender, but they love it because they can just schedule their stuff in blocks and they travel a lot more than I was able to in family law. And I traveled a hell of a lot when I was in family.
Oh, so to be clear, when I wanted to get out of Eastern Kentucky, I wanted to get back. My family was here. And I got an offer to rent space at a firm that I wasn't allowed to do criminal work because there was another criminal attorney there.
Oh,
Otherwise, and then I went to district court once and I remember being like, I used to cover for this attorney and cover for other attorneys. And then I was just, the thing about criminal too, you got to make a name for yourself, different than family. Because like in family law, like if you know what the Constitution is generally, already like it's a document with amendments, you are in the upper echelon. Do you know what I'm saying? Not true in criminal court. They're like legit lawyers
Yeah.
in the sense of like they do case reviews and stuff like that. And listen, y'all, I was just as guilty when I was a family law attorney of not staying up to date on the active changes in case law. When you were a criminal attorney, you couldn't do that shit. But I went to court a couple of times and I remember being like, one, the Hall of Justice is literally disgusting and repulsive. And
it is. Yeah.
yeah, the prosecutors there are all like just sad and weird and they have no
Well, you
jurisdiction.
sit in a building where they barely turn the lights on.
Hmm.
I mean, that
And I was
place
like,
it is sad.
yes.
I didn't ever dislike going over there to work because you got to know the prosecutors. You knew what you were getting. You knew what the routine was. You can estimate exactly how much time you're going to be in and out and all of this stuff. That didn't bother me. You knew if you had something on in that court, by the time you got there, the court was going to be open. You go handle your case. You walk in, you hand it to someone, you get called next, you're out of there.
Hmm.
I really enjoyed that aspect of it. And there were very few prosecutors that I disliked dealing with. And interestingly, all of those people lost their position because the judges disliked dealing with them as well. I didn't have any of those issues. Now, I never did big, everything on the line kind of criminal stuff that where, it was life and death for people.
Yeah.
I didn't do that kind of stuff. The
Oh, I
weight
love that.
was yeah. No, I would have loved to. I only did the criminal part at the very beginning of my practice here, and like you said, I'd not built a reputation for myself at that point.
Yeah, and I never liked DUIs. It's just too much science. Like, and I'm not smart enough. It's like, oh God,
Yeah.
I don't want to talk about nystagmus, and I don't want to talk about the same cop. It's got like 700 DUIs.
Mhm.
I just wasn't a fan of it. I really like circuit court work, and when you're trying to make a living, circuit court work is not as lucrative, if you're a private attorney, unless you've made a name for yourself and you've tried a bunch
Yeah.
of trials and stuff. And so to circle back, I have my first solo circuit court case. My client was found guilty. And it's one of those weird things, like, and I'm sure you have this too, where you wake up in the middle of the night and you have this like haunting feeling about a case, like, I didn't do this right, or did I miss this, or was I wrong here? And when we started at the beginning, it was like the Bridgeman case, that FOC report kind of being like that. I know I've been driving you fucking crazy because I'll text you and be like, did you have this? And you're like sitting here trying to code and like do other stuff.
I don't know.
But there's something about that case that just it's like a gut feeling that's like, there's more to this. Do you know what I'm saying?
Yeah, I do, and it looks so much like so many that I've seen, and it doesn't take away from how awful it is. It's
Mhm.
just I'm a little bit jaded just because of the cases that I kind of handled, and I handled a lot where you had families that were behind the scenes, or you had reason to think that strings could be pulled and all of that, and so I understand that, but I've seen enough of it. It's I just shake my head. I read it and I was like, yeah, these kids are gonna be
Yeah.
messed up. But one of the things we were talking about before we came on today, it occurred to me, I started, taking account of the cases that I had where lots of people got appointed, and then we had counselors and we had people that years later were still involved and on the payroll for the family's lives. And it occurred to me how many of those people, the kids were fine, no reported problems whatsoever leading up to the divorce.
Straight A students.
And everybody's doing just fine. And then just because their parents don't want to be married anymore, all of a sudden there's all kinds of diagnoses and there's medication and there's all of this stuff. It was eye-opening to think about that, oh wait, I don't remember there being any reports of anything in the past in that case or in this case. And then all of a sudden they had 5 people running their lives and picking apart every single text and every social media. It's like, yeah, watching problems be created by this system. It's just sad.
It is.
It's sad.
And I don't have any well, that's not true, but I don't have many positive stories from even my time in family court. And I do have positive stories from my time as a public defender. Many, many people that got sober. Many people that still reach out to me today. And we're talking 10 years, a decade later. But like, I can't remember the last time I just randomly looked at a case that I saw on the website and got like this feeling of like, even, I guess the word would be hope.
Oh, I can think of a few. And then it's funny that
Recently?
they've come up.
No, recently.
Well, in my I'm thinking about cases that I had, not things that I've talked about other people with. And most people aren't going to talk about the good things. They're going to bitch about the bad things. But in my practice, yeah, there were some that I believe saved people's lives, saved people from really abusive situations. And I did
Current Mitch?
one of the things I really liked was doing adoptions. And I think that I had some decisions that I know were really tough for the judge to make.
Mhm.
And between a natural parent who just had been given a million different opportunities but kept risking the child, and then a better situation, and I've seen them take a long time but to work very hard at making those decisions and really change lives. And that's the one aspect that I saw the most it's either helping people that have just been in a horrific marriage for a long time, and when you get it right and everyone involved in the case kind of sees it for what it is, it can have great outcomes. But I think also the adoption system, there are a lot of problems with it that we haven't gotten into, and I think a
Yeah.
lot of it is just with how the statutes are written and some inconsistencies, but there's a lot of good that's done through that system as well.
I didn't do many adoptions. I always struggled just personally with grandparents' rights cases. I wouldn't do them. I was so close with my grandparents. and so close with them. That doesn't mean that, and the law says basically grandparents have no rights. You know what I mean? But whatever. And I didn't do termination of parental rights cases. Very rarely did I do them. And it wasn't that I didn't, because obviously there are times it needs to happen, right? Of course. But I didn't like them. I don't know. And so that's the great thing about being in private practice. You know what I mean?
Oh, you chose not to. You didn't get involved in this. I usually
No.
didn't get involved when if it was the grandparents coming to me,
Mm-hmm.
I might have a consultation, but oftentimes I'd stay away from it. If it was the parents, then I took those all day because I find that, and we've reported on some cases where
No.
all you have to do is go into court and say, oh, I took care of the kid. I'm the one that does everything. And all of a sudden the judge will treat you like a custodian and ignore the law and ignore the hurdles that you have to go through. And I would see that people would come in and there would just be incredible interference in the life in grandparents' cases.
Yeah.
And the courts just let them do it because no one has actually made them prove their standing and make them jump through the hoops to get to that position of power in the case. And I liked those more technical cases.
Yeah, you were more of a family law litigator day in and day out than I was. I really was much more just like, get me off the payroll, move on with your life.
Oh, yeah.
Don't let anyone in a black robe make decisions about your life. And so I
Yeah.
took the cases accordingly. Like I
Yeah.
didn't I get so many messages, Christine, please talk about the fact that, if you're on your third lawyer, no one will take your case. But I wouldn't take those cases. I didn't want that level of litigation. If I was going to do that, I would be a juvenile public defender. Like
Yeah.
that's what I was passionate about.
I would have a meeting about it, but I wouldn't disqualify it. There was a time in my career that if you're coming to me and I look at the case, you've already had that many attorneys, I wouldn't touch it. And there were times later in my career where I did, and it was a bad decision. But there were plenty of times where I would look to see who had represented the person, and I thought, those people didn't know how to deal with a case like this. They had never dealt with this. I would bet that it will be a totally different opportunity. And I've taken on cases where people have called to warn me, you shouldn't take this on. You need to worry and blah, blah, blah. And then the client was like the best client ever because it was just a good match and it worked better. But
And the fact that people are, for listeners, it was rare-ish to be on your third or fourth attorney in 2015. It's hard for me nowadays to find a litigious case that you aren't on your third or fourth
okay,
attorney.
yeah. No, I agree with that. It was much more the exception, 10 years ago. I agree. And now it's just so regular. In fact,
It's every case.
it's amazing. I might get 50 notices a day on cases. I'm not practicing anymore on any of this litigation that I used to be. I've moved on, but my name is on something that's still being litigated by another attorney that may be the second attorney after me, and it just keeps going and going. So,
And going and going.
Yeah.
Yes. And then just to wrap up, another example. So I do think that I think all of the court appointed therapists, custodial evaluators, FOCs, GALs, I do think their social media posts are fair game.
yes.
That used to be off limits-ish for me. It no longer is. So send me all of that stuff. I don't want to see lawyers, only if they're court appointed with immunity. That being said, too, we have a regularly court appointed one that posted about, this is obviously a female, and I can say it, but she posted about the dark underbelly of adoption. And guess what case that was referencing?
No idea.
Matt Bevin, because it's
Oh.
all political. So she thinks adoption is the underbelly and the dark side, and it's so wrong to terminate parental rights and blah, 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 if it's a Republican.
Well,
You ain't saying that when you're taking the court appointments.
we've had no. I agree. We've had judges on the bench. Not that I know of now, but we've had judges who wouldn't terminate a parent's rights at all. They
Which
just had something against it. It didn't matter basically what you did. If an adoption required a termination, and it was back when it was random assignment.
Yeah.
Or I guess it's now all random assignment, but on adoptions it wasn't by name.
Yeah.
And if you got it in that court, you had to have a contingency plan about what you were going to do about dismissing it, maybe refiling, because the judge just didn't believe in it and wouldn't do it, and your adoption would just get stalled.
Wow, that is shocking. That was
Yeah.
before my time. And just to caveat this, at no point in time did I ever, nor would I ever be a Matt Bevin supporter. Not that my politics matter, but not a fan. But also, adoption is either, quote unquote, the dark underbelly. What's good for the goose is good for the gander.
Yeah, I mean, like anything good, people take advantage of it for the wrong reason. People do it for money, just like
100%.
fostering kids. I mean, there are people that are fostering kids that are absolute saints that are saving lives all day, every day, and there are people that are doing it and are just, leaving kids unaccompanied in houses with no heat and water and not feeding them and collecting a check.
100%.
So, I mean, I think that applies to just about everything in this
Oh,
world.
I completely agree. I just think that you should be tweeting that,
Mm.
generally speaking, not just when it goes to your political talking points. And women believing all women, the caveat for the Louisville feminist lawyers is that they should believe all women unless it affects their political aspiration or their pocketbooks.
Well, I think women believe all women applies to one side of the spectrum now. I think there's been a huge reversal in a lot of respects otherwise.
Well, I don't want to. Can you imagine a scenario? Believe all blank, believe all children, believe all women, believe
Yeah.
all puppy dogs, believe all
Yeah.
novels, believe all news articles. It's the dumbest thing I've ever heard. It's just,
I get the gist. The gist being if we can't support ourselves, we don't have a prayer if we can't have each other's back as a group that often faces some adversity at the hands of others. I get that, but yeah, of course it's a broad, sweeping statement that, anything you see in a meme or a short little soundbite on social media is probably going to be a broad statement that you could pick apart.
well, I mean, I guess. And so, well, y'all women out there, you feminist lawyers in Louisville, believe Christine Miller. Bye.
See ya.
We need some justice. My life is fine justice.
Content of this podcast is for informational and entertainment purposes only. It is not intended to be and should not be construed as legal advice. Engaging with this content does not create an attorney-client relationship between you and the hosts, guests, or their firms. The views and opinions expressed on this podcast are solely those of the individuals involved and do not necessarily reflect the official policy or position of any law firm, company, or organization. We make no representations or warranties regarding the accuracy, completeness, or applicability of the information presented. Any reliance on the information in this podcast is at your own risk. Laws are constantly changing, and every situation is unique. You should always seek the advice of a qualified attorney for your specific legal concerns.